Hi, I'm Alison Beckles, and you are listening to Best Fails, the podcast where we share our stories of failure, explore their impact, and reflect on what we learned. Now, today's guest is Joanne Price, whose quirky failure led to a profound self discovery that has transformed the way she approaches her work. Now, let's get into it. Welcome, Joanne, to Best Fails. It is such a pleasure to have you on today.
It is a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, and I was thinking back to when we first met. Like we were doing our masters in organizational psychology at Verbeck. I remember Kevin saying that distinctions were hard to come by in the program. In my mind, honestly, Joe, I was saying he talking, but I have excelled academically, so please, I am going to get this distinction. Then we started, I think one of the first courses we did was the life and career development course.
Such a good
I
one.
knew that course was trouble for me. That was, I hated it. I hated it, Joe. I did not enjoy that at all. That made
Oh,
me think about my life in such a way, and I was like, this is what the rest of this program is going to be like. Because if it is, this is going to be a problem for me.
oh, so I loved it, but I found it really difficult because every week it was trying to do the academic learning. So like, this is what I need to take from this lesson. And then I was going, oh, that totally makes sense about that part of my career that I could never quite figure out why it didn't click or why it didn't work. And then I just kept thinking, oh, that would be really useful for work. I must mention that. Like whatever we were reading, there were three streams of thoughts going through my head at any one time. Just
No, my one stream was this is making me reflect on my career, and I was very unhappy with my career at the point in time. So
ah,
it felt like if I was just sitting in a stew of my unhappiness.
oh,
That
bless you.
anyhow. So, so I'm gonna share a little bit about who you are with the audience so that they could get a feel for who Joe is.
Yeah.
So Joe has had a varied career, moving from working in opticians to a contact lens company before spending over a decade in media technology, where she worked in project support, R&D, and finally with the people team. Most recently, she was responsible for people systems and the company's DEI program and employee resource groups. So she has recently completed a master's in organizational psychology. You've heard us talking about this, and is looking forward to applying that knowledge in the future. So that is the professional bit, Joe. But we want to know some of the personal bits, like where did you grow up? What was your family life like? All of these things. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna turn over to you to give us, a little bit of a snapshot of who Jo was and what her family life was like.
Yeah. I was thinking it might be quite boring. So I grew up in a very small town about 50 miles north of London, although it does have a good town name. So I grew up in a place called Biggleswade, which feels like a fictional town.
It does. It feels like something from a storybook.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very friendly town name. Um, and yes, so I grew up in a house with my mum and my dad, and my dad was a police officer, and my mum was a teacher and then a head teacher. So as you can imagine, that we like being good in our house,
I
and
can imagine. I understand.
we're not for rule breaking.
No.
Um, and yeah, I think I had a really lucky childhood in a way because I had lots of family around me. So we lived really close to my both sets of grandparents, and we always had like lovely, really massive family Christmases and family events, which was just I felt loads of support from every direction, really. And I also really loved school. I love learning, hence the masters, um, and possibly a PhD.
I know.
I can't stop learning. It's a problem. Um, so yeah, I think I had quite a lucky childhood, and I guess it was sort of balanced. So I was diagnosed with asthma when I was 3, and I was very poorly for about 4 years, very very poorly for about 4 years, and then it got under control. So I sometimes think that kind of balanced out. I had the illness, and that balanced out my luck. having lots of lovely family around me and lots of support in a very sweet little town in the middle of
Oh,
nowhere.
yes. In that fairy tale town called Biggleswade.
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 Yeah.
So this is a podcast about failure. How did people respond to failures within the community?
Yeah, I think we must have responded fairly well because I don't really remember there being any drama about it.
That's
So
interesting.
I think
Uh-huh.
it was, and yeah, I was trying to think, we're very good at laughing at ourselves as a family. So
I
if it's
love that.
like a silly thing, we are just gonna laugh and then probably laugh at each other and then and then we just move on. And I remember coming out of my GCSE maths exam and being worried that it hadn't gone as well as I'd hoped. And my dad just said to me, "It doesn't matter. You can't change what has just happened. We will wait for the results and then we will take action when we know information."
I
And it
love
was
that.
it was yeah, it was always more about how you react to it and reacting to it in a positive way rather than focusing on the failure itself, if that makes sense. So there would never have been any punishment around a failure. It would have been, what lessons can we learn? What do we do next? What's the next step to take? So it was frustrating sometimes because if you asked my parents for advice, they would give you pros and cons, but never a steer. So, and it always was, it's your decision to take, and we'll support you whichever way you go.
Right.
And sometimes you would be like, no, just tell me.
I just need some guidance,
Is
please.
it
Just
A or B,
help me.
please? Like, I know the pros and cons of both. I'm asking for a bit more, and it was always, no, you choose, and we'll support whatever decision it is, and whatever the consequences of that decision are. We're here, so
I love that because that's such a beautiful stage for building resilience for
mhm,
for failures. And as you get older, as the stakes get higher, you will experience greater and greater levels of failure. But if your practice has always been, okay, let's not kind of worry about it, no,
yeah,
let's wait and see what happens, and then we can make a decision based on that. That is just such a good foundation.
yeah,
And so many children don't have that
mhm,
approach and don't have that response that they can use to build and craft their own response to failure. So I love that. So at this point, I've got a game for us to play.
ooh, I love a
Where
game.
should we begin? By Esther Perel. I love Esther. She
Yeah,
is just love her. Just such a big fan. So I'm gonna choose a couple cards for us.
okay,
And
I love it.
what I'll do is we'll read out the questions. And because I am hosting this conversation today, I'll go first to give you a chance
Give
to
me
kind
a
of think
minute.
about your exactly to think about your response, and then we'll go from there. So let's see what our first question is. When no one is watching,
Oh.
I will keep this PG.
Okay, do my best. Do my best.
When no one is watching, what do I do when no one is? Talk to myself, honestly. Talk. And my husband has caught me on a couple of occasions, and he's like, but I find it comforting. There is something about saying the words out loud. And then the truth is, sometimes it is not very, I am not doing it. I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm doing it. But because there's nobody around, it's a safe space, I am going to murmur to myself. I do it regularly.
Yeah. Yes, I am very much the same. And sometimes, because I think I read somewhere that asking or saying it out loud activates a different part of your brain. So if you're stuck on
Really?
something, yeah, if you're stuck on something, the thinking bit of your brain can't get there. But framing it into a question and saying it out loud activates some different pathways. And then quite often you'll be like, oh no, I know the answer. I needed to ask the question in the right way.
Yeah, I hear yourself saying it. I
Yeah.
like that.
And I feel like yours might, it's very difficult. So I live alone. So there is
Yes.
almost all my time, no one is watching.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right on the talking to myself. And I think like, during the first COVID lockdown,
Hmm.
I found myself talking to my fridge. And at that point, I thought I'd better find some way to contact someone. Because if I'm talking to inanimate objects, then I might have spent too much time alone. And I think very shortly after that, thankfully for everybody, there was a small release and I was able to see some humans and talk to them. But yeah, no, and I've realized that I talk to myself so often at home that I do it when I'm in public. And then quite often I will say to myself, stop talking to yourself. You're not kind of displaying the sort of perception of yourself that you might want to. But that also has to be said out loud. And then I have to say, and that won't help. So I have this whole dialogue out loud in public, trying to tell myself to stop talking out loud in public.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, there is a lot of talking to myself that happens.
And this is an aside, but I also find too when it comes to talking to myself and saying things out loud, if I'm ruminating on something, I mean like heavy rumination where the anxiety is high and so forth. I
Mm-hmm.
find that when I do say something out loud, because I normally would have during that time, I would have like outbursts, like verbal outbursts, and I find because I am so deep in the rumination, the outburst shocks me into, Alison, this is not a good space for you to be in.
Yeah.
And so I find that that also happens for me
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah. Just that. Okay.
Ooh,
Oh, what have we got?
if I caught my friend having an affair, I would slap her across her head. No, my best friend and I have known each other from the time we were 11 years old. I am allowed to slap her because she knows better. Like, and then I would slap her, and then I would sit down. We'd be like, okay, so what? And now talk to me about what has happened, because
Yeah.
obviously this is so outside of you that I know something has happened. So the slap is just to bring her to
Yeah.
reality, so we
Back
can
in
have
the
the conversation.
room.
Exactly. What would you do?
It's a good question. I guess I've got two best friends. One of whom I cannot ever imagine having an affair,
Right.
and the other one who I can absolutely imagine having an affair. And they will remain nameless.
Polar
Um,
opposites.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. I think similar to you, the friend who I can't imagine having an
Yes.
affair. I would just be like, well, what's going on?
Yes.
This is
Obviously something
this
is
is
not right.
this is so not you. And the one that I can imagine having an affair, I'd probably just give a high five and just leave
Well,
them to their lovely life.
you are doing you. Like, who am
Yeah,
I to judge? You are doing you.
absolutely. If that's where you need to be right now, all the very best.
Exactly. And our last question.
Oh,
A grudge I have been holding on to.
oh, crikey. Do you want me to go first?
Yes. If you got
Yeah.
one, go.
No. So I try not to. I actively
Yeah.
try not to,
Yeah.
because there was something happened. I think it was a year after I was at uni, and I won't go into the details. And I couldn't let it go. I really couldn't let it go. And a few years later, I had this amazing, amazing leader who gave up her lunchtimes to do emotional intelligence workshops with us. They were incredible. And one of them, we had to imagine or like recall something that upset us and like a grudge essentially that we were holding on to. And we did an exercise. We had to grip a pen really, 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 really hard and then let it go. And doing that released that old grudge and made me go, what are you doing? Like disliking someone gives them and thinking about them that often gives them too much power. And so since then I've tried to go, like again, you do you,
Yeah. Exactly.
and you
You
do
go
you
on and do
over
you.
there and where I'm
Yeah.
not thinking about you.
Yeah, I have difficulty with this one because if the question was, think about a time where you've done something that you didn't like and you've held on to it, I could
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think that I hold on to things that people. I don't know that anybody has ever done me anything though that I would hold a grudge to, and for that I'm very thankful. I
Hmm.
haven't. I haven't had like bad experiences with people and with friendships, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth. So I am very grateful for that. So yeah, I don't know that I got any good answer for this one. So this is where I give over to you to tell us a bit about the failure that you are going to share with us today.
Yes. It's an interesting one because I think on the face of it, it's such a tiny, insignificant failure. But actually the impact it's had on my career has been super positive in a
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
opposite of a failure in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I after I worked in the opticians, I moved to a contact lens company and I was working in their call center and I quite enjoying the job because I'd been on the other end of the phone for years and it was kind of nice to see it from the other side and I could had a lot of empathy with the customers because I knew what they were going through. So it made it very easy to do a good job. Um, and after I'd been there about 18 months, I took a call from a customer and I placed an entire large order without once typing anything into my computer. And I had done the whole thing from muscle memory. Just, yeah, and the left eye, lovely, and the right eye, magic. And then there's the patient's surname, and how do we spell that? And blah, 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 blah. Probably a 15-minute phone call. We just hadn't, like, all just muscle memory, not typing a single thing. And at the end of the call, the customer asked for the order number. And at that point, I looked at my screen and went, lovely, excellent. So I did unfortunately lie to my customer and say that my computer had just crashed. She gave me a moment. We'll just do that again. And after that, I just managed to type and enter the order into the system and say
Yes.
very professionally, and
Yes.
then give her an order number once I'd actually managed to save something. Um, and it was a real wake up call to me that the job wasn't challenging anymore. Like if you can place an entire order from memory, knowing exactly which questions are going to be asked by the system for each type of contact lens, or yeah, just the whole thing, it just made me go, oh, I need a challenge. And thankfully, I had an incredible manager at the time who I was able to speak to and say, I think I need a challenge. And she, luckily, with that, it was a really good company for personal development and career development. They like really gave you every opportunity to progress and move and learn and grow. I've never known anywhere like it. It was incredible. And yes, she started just giving me extra bits and giving me opportunities to work with other departments and different teams. And then they led to secondments and then permanent positions and then other secondments and other permanent positions. And I ended up working in a whole lot of different departments and supporting different teams and really gaining a really good understanding of how the whole operations team worked and what bits worked well together.
Yeah.
And now, having done my masters, I know this magical thing is called job crafting. And it is something I have done in every role since then.
Wow.
So I will reach a point where I either will make another silly mistake like that, at which point I go, oh, I need challenge. Or if I start to feel my motivation waning, I think, right, what's missing from my role? And sometimes it's the task. I remember in one role, in fact, my first role at the media technology company, I I was a project support coordinator and just something was missing. I was like, it's fine, but I'm missing something. I'm missing working with Excel. And I just spoke to my manager, and then, within a couple of weeks, I was suddenly responsible for a bunch of reports and just was filling a gap really. Um, and yeah, it would just think like the support from my manager, the encouragement, the knowledge I gained through those roles, the positive experience of job crafting I've never been afraid since then to say to a manager, I need something else, or I've got some time. Is there anything in this area I could look at or work on? Is there a project you're working on that you need a hand with? You know,
Yeah,
and I think the job crafting and then appearing proactive to managers and being the sort of person that says yes to opportunities
yeah,
has given me so much experience in such a completely random selection of things that I've got such a real jigsaw puzzle of knowledge of different parts of organizations that have just keep nudging me forward in my career, and they're always useful, and quite often when you least expect it you'll be like, oh yeah, no, I had to do that from my last company. I did that. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I'll do that. It's fine. So yeah, from just not placing an order,
that
just
I know. I mean,
spiraled out.
and it's interesting because there are a couple of things there. You've spoken to this customer for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Now you've got to kind of figure out a way to think on your feet, especially considering that it was a big order. I
yeah,
need to get this information back from you. But I think also then the presence of mind not to just ignore it as a, maybe I was distracted. Maybe there's
hmm.
something else going on.
I think because I was a high performer, it was
Right.
so out of character.
Right. Got it.
So maybe it's that, you've worked incredibly busy shifts, you've churned out hundreds of orders in a day, you've worked while there were all sorts of distractions going on internally, externally to the building, never done this before. Why is it out of character? So I think it's so out of character, and because it was so different to how I would normally be at work, that it was, and it was a really clear indicator that I just didn't have enough challenge.
Yeah.
And I no, you
No,
go.
I was just gonna say I love that because well, so so for me, sometimes I know my first response would be, "Alison, you so dumb. How you could do that?" It's more like it will be more from the and then be thinking to me, "Hey, suppose somebody find out. I need to make sure he fits this before somebody finds out and I get into trouble." I'm gonna go into my initial response would tend to be a little bit of panic, and once I got that all sorted out, it would be more like a lot of recommendations on myself of like, what have you done? And I am, and I guess maybe why I'm having these conversations about failure, going through that process of asking myself the hard questions. And maybe this is an easy question as well from the perspective of I'm taking myself off the hook as opposed to putting a whole set of blame and shame on myself. I'm actually giving myself space to recognize, okay, you don't normally behave like this. So because it is out of the ordinary, let's maybe pause the blame and the shame and think
Yeah,
about what information is missing here that I might need to consider.
yeah. And I think actually, yeah, it probably goes back to the childhood thing of laughing at myself, because I think my first reaction was just to laugh and just be like, what have you done?
That,
Right. But no harm, no foul. The customer's going to get their order. It would have been
yeah,
worse if I'd faked an order number, tried
exactly.
to remember her order and put it back in the system.
Yeah. And go
Like
ahead and
they'd
it's
have got
so
like
wrong.
3 packs of random contact lenses. It was so much easier to just go, oh, okay, let's do over,
Yes,
start
there's
again,
been a glitch. I
and
mean,
then
and it was a literal glitch because,
yeah,
in fact, you would have glitched.
yeah,
You
there was
were
a
the one
human
that
glitch,
glitched.
unfortunately, on that day. My brain left the building
Yeah.
temporarily. Um, and I don't. I wish I could remember what I was thinking about, because I know it was autonomic almost. That placing that
Yes.
order was so routine
Yeah.
that I wish I knew. I mean, my brain was probably worrying about what we were going to have for dinner or something. I forgot. I should have got that out of the freezer. And the electrolyte, like, um,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah. So I think after I finished that call, I did just laugh at myself, and I think I've always been. I don't. Maybe partly working in opticians because plug eye tests are important for everybody, even if you don't wear glasses, because they're an early indicator of health. And there were certain things we were trained to look out for. If someone comes in and their eyes look super red, you almost tie them to a chair to make sure they get seen, like,
Right. Okay.
because there could be an issue, and let's check it out because we don't want to send you away. And I think working in a field like that, where there could be really long-term tangible impacts on people, like it gives you perspective for other things. So it's just a contact lens order. I'm just going to do the thing, and it's going to be fine, and no one's going to die. There's not going to be any long-lasting impact. And in fact, at my current company, we like if people are getting worried, we will say it's only TV.
I like that.
It's
It's only
only
two.
TV. Like
Yeah.
let's just calm down, figure out the next step, and then let's make progress. Let's not blow things out of proportion. Let's not lose perspective. We're not a bunch of surgeons. We're not about to lose a patient. It is just TV.
Yeah. And I mean, you had some really good things working for you because you had a manager who was very,
Yeah.
open to, well, let's try you here. Let's do that. So talk to me a little bit about job crafting because I know that's an organizational psychology term. So let's break that down. What is job crafting? And then also, like, from your perspective and your experience, how can people, especially when they're maybe in a similar situation where they're not being challenged in their jobs, what are some of the things that they can do to make their job a little bit more interesting and challenging?
Yeah. Job crafting is simply my favorite thing in the world. Maybe I love it. I just love it. It has helped me so many times. So job crafting is the act really of consciously thinking about your job and how well it fits you, and then just tweaking it a tiny percent to make it fit you a bit better. And then maybe in a couple of weeks we tweak something else and make it fit a bit better. I'm going to try and say the 5 types of job crafting, and I'm almost certainly going to forget one. But there's task crafting. So maybe there's a particular task that you struggle with. So you might want to spend some time figuring out how to make that task a bit easier. Can you automate it as we are now? Can you use AI to help you with it? Is it one that's actually essential to the company? Could you speak to your boss and maybe someone else loves doing that sort of thing and you hate it? Maybe we can switch some tasks around amongst the team. There's cognitive crafting, which is reframing how you think about your role. So for me in my current role, because I'm responsible for the people system, I'm so many steps away from the actual goals of our company that sometimes it's hard to feel connected to the goals because we want to be the number one in live sports broadcasting. Me updating an HR system feels
How
very
does that?
far
Yes.
from. So I have to say to myself, no, you doing that system enables all the other downstream tools to work. It enables the HR team to fully support the rest of the organization. Like it's reframing how I think about the systems in general and how they contribute to the company.
I love that.
Yes, that one is tricky. I have to remind myself regularly. Um, There is relational crafting, which is one that I personally do a lot, which is thinking about um, if you're feeling a bit isolated, or how, are you feeling connected enough to the organization, to your colleagues? So, because I work remotely, and I think probably all tell I'm a bit of an extrovert, but sometimes I feel like I'm missing that human interaction. So I actually have regularly scheduled catch up meetings with several of my colleagues to just have those or try and make those coffee point moments where you would just bump and have like an interesting chat, find out what's going on, how are people doing. And I know myself, like if I haven't got those in, or if for some reason they have to get moved out, I will enjoy work less that week because I haven't
Oh,
had
yes,
that
that
time, that
interaction.
interaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then there is well-being crafting.
Mm-hmm.
We know this is not good for us to be sat at our desks all day staring at a screen. So it might be just going out for a 5 minute walk. Like if you feel yourself getting stressed, go out for a 5 minute walk. Maybe it's scheduling once a week a slightly longer lunch break so you can go and do something that's good for you. Maybe it is fully disconnecting in an evening so you can go and take part in an activity that brings you joy and helps you recover from your working day before you go again. And I definitely have forgotten the fifth one.
You said it.
There is another one. Oh, it's going to bug me. I'm going to ask, what is it? Oh, it might be competency based.
Mm.
It's not called that, but we could call it competency crafting
Base
for the
crafting.
sake of this.
Uh-huh.
Which is, are you learning stuff? Are you developing your career? Are you heading in the right direction? So if if you know in future you might want to become a keynote speaker, what are you doing now that will help you on that journey? What could you add into your role to help you move forward towards that longer term goal? And I think because it shows that you're a proactive individual, I've never had a manager decline me saying, could we? And actually, there's a bunch of job crafting that you don't need approval for. You change how a report is run, so long as the output's the same. The kind of the journey to get there doesn't matter. And yeah, so it's just whenever I feel my motivation dip, I go back to job crafting. I think about the different areas, and then I go, which one's out of sync? Right, that's the one. It's my personal development. I'll set aside an hour a week to do a training or to research something I'm interested in. And then I feel better at my job.
Yeah. And I like that. And I also like the fact that it isn't that you aren't only just crafting your tasks. So you're not just crafting the things that you can do, but there's so many other things that you can craft. What am I including there for well-being? What am I including for personal development? Have I thought about how what I'm doing aligns with the overall company goals? And maybe if I can't figure it out, that might be a conversation I can have with my manager or with, another staff member. Like all of those are parts of crafting your job in a way to make you feel a lot more connected. So I absolutely love that the focus is not only on task. It is very much you can do that,
Yeah,
but there are other
absolutely.
ways that you can craft as well.
Yes. And in fact,
Yeah.
a little while ago, it was while I was really heavily into my research project,
Yeah.
I started life crafting, where
Tell me this.
I created like a weekly grid, so like every
Yeah.
day of the week, and then
Yeah.
the 5 types of job crafting, but I tried to apply it to my life to
Yes.
make sure I'd got some balance because I was so obviously working full time and then trying to do a master's research project on top. You've
Yeah.
limited spare time outside
Of
of that.
course. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, right, what am I doing for my well-being? Okay, I need to schedule in some yoga. What am I
Right.
doing relationally? Okay, I haven't seen my family for a bit, so I'm going to stick in lunch or breakfast with my. And it was just doing that, so I had a structure to help me frame the bits to keep my life in some kind of balance in the
Yes.
middle of all the chaos. Have some kind of
Yeah.
structure to be like, and well-being. Like, have you booked that doctor's appointment or that
Yeah.
dentist appointment? Like, right,
Have you gotten your eyes checked? Because come on. I
yeah,
mean, we are talking to
go and have
like,
an eye test.
have you
It's so important.
uh, so looking when you look back at that, because was that when you said that was your first hint of like I tend to make mistakes when I'm bored, or did that happen and then it immediately brought back other examples that you would have had before?
No, I think that was the first one, but then I did notice it's the first one I'm conscious of. Uh, and I mean, well, certainly you could, if I showed you my undergraduate scores for each module, you would be able to tell the modules I was bored in and the ones I wasn't, because there's a definite, like, if I loved the subject, that's a higher score. This one we're scraping by because we did not care. Yeah, not this one. So I think it's probably there. If I went back and really consciously thought about it, if I'm bored, I'm not performing at my best. Um, and it's certainly from that point, there are really clear things in my career where it was like, oh, I stuffed that up. But it's because I was ready for the next thing. And I hadn't. What I need to work on is realizing I'm ready for the next step before I start making the mistakes.
Because I was just about to say, let's talk about that because we are talking about failure. And I think that sometimes when people think about failures that they've experienced, that is that. Well, and maybe this is also my own bias. Let me own this. Don't let me say something's we. Let me say I. And I'll own it. When I think about failure as well, sometimes I'm very focused on what so focused on that I've lost something or I've given up something, I've done something wrong or incorrectly that I don't I don't always, especially in the moment, also step back and think to myself, what opportunities has this presented to me? Because basically that's what that error caused for you. It presented an opportunity to reflect on this role. Look, if I can talk for 15 minutes without having to look at this thing, something is going on here. But we but we don't always see failures from that perspective, from the perspective of opportunity. So going forward now, knowing that this is a sign for you, that one of these signs that it's time for you to maybe craft a little bit or look for more challenging experiences, what would you be building into your process, building into the things that you do to give you that space to step back and reflect on, am I being challenged enough, or do I need
Mhm.
to add something before the next era happens?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. I think I'm a lot more self-aware and self-reflective. Have probably over like the last, it's probably the 3 or 4 years, and helped by uni because
Yes. Oh no, yeah.
we know the thing, we know the things now,
Oh, we
and we
know.
know the warning signs, and we know what
Yeah.
interventions are available. But I
Yeah.
think also because I'm such a proactive job crafter, I probably am less likely to get to that stage now because I'm aware when I go, like you log on and you go, not today. Like, oh, okay. Why is it not today? Is it I didn't get enough sleep last night? Is it that that project is scary and I don't want to do it? Is it that it's been dragging on and maybe that needs to be parked and I need to do something I want to do today rather than something I feel like I have to do? It's just that, yeah. Or maybe I'm due a holiday and I need a break and I'll come back and I'll be refreshed. But yeah, yeah, on days where I go, I consciously go, right, is that a one-off? Is that the third day in a row? Let's have a look. Which of the areas are out of sync? And sometimes it might just be it's the school holidays, so the people I usually talk to aren't available, and it's like that'll be all right. They're back next week. We'll have a chat. I'll feel fine.
Yeah. 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 I love that. Yeah. I like, because the thing that's in my mind too is, based on what you said as well, you were in a very supportive organization, very supportive managers and so forth. For people who might not have that type of support, of course, finding another job and another opportunity is a legitimate thing to do. So go for it. I mean, I have done that my own
Yeah.
self, like,
Sometimes,
if it
sometimes
isn't
it's just
serving
time
me,
to go.
yes, it isn't serving the purpose. So
Yeah,
find something that serves the purpose.
yeah,
But in that in between space, while you might need to transition, where the support might not be there, what suggestions would you put forward to somebody who is in a situation where they don't have the support, but they need to do something until another opportunity
yeah.
presents itself?
I still think job crafting is an option
Yeah. All
because
yeah, yeah,
there are
yeah.
so many aspects of job crafting where you don't need a manager's permission.
Yes.
And whether it's reframing, and maybe the reframing is this is my job for now, and I will start looking for opportunities, but I'm just going to accept that this is the situation. I'm going to try not to worry about it so much. I'm going to just put it in a little box at the end of the day and not worry about it till the next morning. Or, the relational, I think relational well-being crafting are easier to do personally and quietly, and this is going to make me feel better about my day because I've got the flexibility to do this or the other, and then I will feel better about my job as a whole. But I think, yeah, there's and because I like to do sorry, I was just thinking, I like to job craft the heck out of my role, and then if I'm still not feeling motivated, then I know it's time to go. Like,
I
because
love
I feel like I've
yeah.
taken everything I can do to help me and my role fit together, or my role and the company fit. And if it still isn't working,
Then
I've
it's
I've
time.
done my best. I've given it
Yeah.
a fair
Yeah.
try,
Yeah.
and now it's time to look for a change.
I love that, because I know, and I guess I don't want people to feel like, oh my goodness, like, if there isn't, if I can't change the way that I do this, there's nothing else that I can do. There are so many different things. I've got a friend at work, and he probably does, probably he would never call it job crafting, but he is. he probably may call it being social, but he is very good at just out of the blue, just saying, "Hey, how are you doing? How was your weekend?"
Yeah.
He is just very good at finding like little moments just to have like those water cooler conversations to interrupt the I guess maybe the monotony and even the stress of the day, because if you're in stressful, you need to take breaks away from that. So I love my biggest takeaway from this conversation is job crafting is not only about the task and about how you do what you do. There are so many other ways that you can tweak and make your job and make your role a much more enjoyable situation. With that caveat, as to if you have done everything that you can and
Yeah.
it still is a problem, well then don't just stay and punish
Yeah.
yourself. Don't
Because we
you
spend
know?
far, far too much time at work to be miserable there.
Yes,
Like, it is
exactly. So
just not right.
yes, and take all that knowledge, all of the things that you would have learned while you job crafted. Maybe you like a role that has a little bit more interaction. Maybe you like a
Mhm.
role that gives you different types of experiences and the tasks that you do. Take all of that with you as you're looking for another role, because that helps you to understand. Well, this is probably more area that I want to be in. So when you think about that failure experience,
Yes.
or failures that you've experienced, period, in your life, who would you want to shout out as an unsung hero that helped you to navigate the experiences that you've had?
Well, I feel like I should give out a big shout out to two people from that organization.
Right.
My manager at the time was a wonderful woman called Terry Taylor,
Hi,
who
Terry.
she simply one of the best managers I've ever had. I just blossomed under her because it was just I felt like she was that she really cared about my career progression, and that she could see that the best way to get results for the company was to get the best out of the people that work for her. And she was so supportive and so generous with her time and just incredible. Like, we just worked so well together. And then I would like to shout out the absolutely incredible Carmen Lester, who was the, I think, operations manager at the time, but she created this incredible culture where it was all about really remembering that we're all people and that we all have good days and bad days. And she was so good at setting a direction and inspiring us to follow it. And she will, in fact, I reached out to her when we were doing our leadership and performance management module at uni, because I realized that whenever we read anything about leaders, I was comparing them to her. She is my leader benchmark.
Yes, she
And
is your ILT.
yeah, this is what an excellent leader looks like. And like, we just compare things to how Carmen does them. And it was just incredible to be able to reach out to her really and say, I just don't know how to express how incredible it was working for you, because you created this atmosphere where people thrived. And it was just incredible. I feel very lucky that I got to work with her.
Oh, that is so
So
awesome. That is
yeah.
awesome. So, final words. What final words would you want to leave with someone who has experienced an error or experienced some kind of failure at work and is like, what have I done with myself?
Yeah. First of all, we've all been there. Like, all of us have stuffed up something. And I would imagine for 90% of the population, no one died. Let's remember, it's just TV.
Yeah.
Just TV. And I think, yeah, do what I did maybe and think about what led to that
Yeah.
issue, error, failure, and then what you can learn from it
Yeah.
and laugh at it. Almost all of them are funny when you look back. Just have a giggle. It'll relieve some of the stress, and then we can go ahead and learn. And I think, and you've probably heard this before. I think, is it Carol Dweck that says
Mhm.
fail stands for first attempt in learning?
It sounds like something that she would say from other things that I've
Yeah.
read from her. I love it. First
And I think
attempt
that
in
is,
learning.
yeah, it's just what did we learn from it?
Yeah,
And we'll
yeah,
try again and we'll do it
yeah.
better. It's there are so few things that are like irreplaceable, irreparable, you know, it really, especially in a work environment. You can redo the Excel, you can replace the order, we can remake the thing, we can, like, it's a bit of effort, but
It can be done.
it
Yeah.
is just work. And the more pressure you put on yourself, I think the more likely you are to stuff up. So
Yeah. True. Very true.
just relax a bit, enjoy it.
Yes. Do some well-being crafting,
Yeah,
like
go and treat yourself to a nice coffee. Come back.
exactly.
It'll still be there.
Call it some friends outwards. Have a chat.
It'll do you the world of good.
Oh, my Joanne, this was very, very good. Laugh at yourself, number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Got to laugh at yourself. And
Yeah.
then and just rather than blame it, just take a step back and consider what is this saying about me? Because I am not like this. Like those are two like my great takeaways. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
You're so welcome. I've loved it.
Joanne, thank you so very much for telling us your story. And if you want to connect with Joanne, check out our show notes for details. If you enjoy the podcast and want to support us, tell a friend or leave a review on your favorite podcast app. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube at Best Fails Podcast. Now, if you have your own best fail story that you would like to share, send us an email at info@mybestfails.com. Have you had a similar experience to Joanne? I would love to hear about it. What was your major takeaway from the experience? Write us a note or record a voice memo and send it to us at info@mybestfills.com. And we might just play it on a future episode. If you are navigating or processing a failure and would like a safe space to reflect and explore what it means for you, visit our show notes to book some time with me. Remember, shame dies when stories are told in safe places. And until next time.